stuff that they did to get Pope Francis into the Vatican it's evil. And the good Catholics don't want that. They don't want that. Personally, I think what the conclusion I came to as I wrote the book was that this Cardinal Theodore McCarrick was a plant. He was a CIA operative. He was an asset. They put him into the church. They worked him up the ladder, and they had him like in the 90s, in the 1990s during the Clinton administration. He was picked up by the State Department, made this global ambassador for religious freedom, and he traveled around the world talking about religious freedom and passing out money. And who gave him the money? And the question was always, who gave him the money? And they said, well, it's wealthy Catholic donors. I think those wealthy Catholic donors had the initial CIA. And he would go to China, and he would go to Iran, and he would go to these sensitive places and pass out this money. And that's why when Obama came in, they tapped this guy and said, there's a conservative pope in there. We want to get rid of that guy, and we want to get a progressive pope in there, and we've got all these things we want to do. And what they did with the Vatican, what the Obama White House did with the Vatican, is they used Pope Francis for what I call as morality laundering. It's not money laundering, it's morality laundering. He's the moral voice of Catholics around the world, and he goes out there and says, oh no, these aren't illegal aliens, they're refugees. You have to let them in. You're not a good person if you don't let them in across your country and let them take over your country.
How effective do you think that is in this day and age? The Pope's word are there still world leaders you think that are really, using guidance from the Vatican?
I don't think necessarily it's the world leaders, but what happened was we've seen this now. USAID funded and a lot of other government entities, Health and Human Services, the State Department, funded the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, like $3.5 billion over the last, 4 or 5 years, mostly during the Biden years, to bring in all these illegal aliens and then to service them when they're here. I mean, Elon Musk is talking about that all the time. They're just luring people in and giving them money to stay here. And that's what they did. That's what they used the Pope for. And the Pope, this book that I have, it outlines the beginnings of that process where the Pope and Cardinal Theodore McCarrick and the Obama White House, led by Joe Biden and Dennis McDonough, White House Chief of Staff, in 2014, they set up something called the Alliance for Prosperity with 3 small Central American countries, Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. Well, Honduras at the time, the president had been installed, was a U.S.-backed installation. He was drug smuggling. He was aligned with the Sinaloa cartel. They knew it. And he came to the White House to visit them in the summer of 2014 because what was happening? There was a huge invasion of unaccompanied minors. It was a crisis. And all these kids were showing up. 60,000 kids showed up that summer. And so they had to set up something. Joe Biden came up with the idea of calling it the Alliance for Prosperity. They gave $1.5 billion to Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. Honduras, the guy was smuggling drugs, cocaine in the United States by the ton with his brother. And they were involved in human trafficking. And they put the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops and Catholic Relief Services in line with cartels. This was Pope Francis, Theodore McCarrick, knowingly tying the Catholic Church into working with the cartel devils. That's not what Catholics want. But they did it all secretly. No one knew. They said, oh, it's refugees. And people around the world, they're looking at, it wasn't just in America, they started doing refugees in Europe too. So this whole thing came out of the Vatican, and the Catholic influenced countries in Europe, Italy, France, Germany, Spain, they suffered huge influxes of illegal immigration, all because the Pope was like, look, they're refugees, we have to have them here.